Ranting, reflecting, reasoning, reckoning.
The Huddle.
19 to 6 on the Huddle on this Wednesday evening. Cameron Slater from whaleoil.co.nz. Hello, Cam.
Hey, Larry.
And we go to the number 2 blogger, David Farrar. No, I'm just kidding, David. David Farrar from kiwiblog.co.nz. Cameron, let's move through these 2 decisions pending by the government. I'm surprised this one hasn't come already. The Crayford Farms decision on the side of the Chinese. The OIO has given their decision to the ministers. I think it will be confirmed. What do you say?
I think it'll be confirmed, but I know one thing. I've known Maurice Williamson since I was about 12 years old, and he is tighter than a fish's proverbial when it comes to matters like this. And I doubt that even his wife Raywin will know what decision he's making on this. He treats these things very, very seriously, and so we're not going to get any inkling out of him. And I imagine Jonathan Coleman's the same.
Yeah, it's a done deal, isn't it, David?
Yeah, look, I suspect what will come out is that the OIO has still recommended that there's no grounds to turn it down, and if that's the recommendation, the ministers will agree with that. I cynically was half expecting that they'd release the decision on Good Friday,
yeah.
But from the sound of it, it's a huge amount of paper to get through, so I think we're probably a couple of weeks away. I reckon we're
probably 2 weeks away from it.
Oh, really? Do you think there's going to be a backlash, either of you? A backlash? Because the polls sort of say that a lot of people don't want this.
Well, the polls say that National's at 51% too.
That's right.
Yeah.
So are they really against it, or is it just crass xenophobia?
Well, I think what it shows is a lack of understanding about foreign investment. We need foreign investment. New Zealand companies are also expanding overseas, and it's interesting that Fonterra is looking to expand in China, and maybe I see in this morning's paper with an article by Fran O'Sullivan, we'll talk to her after 6, with Shanghai Penxing, which is the very company that's buying Crayford Farms.
Yeah. I think the key is not to be defensive on this decision. When you look at what's proposed with the partnership with Landcorp, this actually has potential to be able to be a partnership with global opportunities for New Zealand, because we have the expertise, but they have the contacts in Asia, they have the networks, etc. And I think actually, don't be defensive on this if you approve it. You should actually go out and talk about the positive.
I think the Landcorp aspect of it has got huge benefits that are underestimated. Landcorp specialises in taking poorly performing farms and land and turning them into productive farms and land. Now, if you take that model that they do there and sell that expertise overseas in partnership and licensing arrangements with overseas countries, using this Shanghai Pension bid as a roadmap, then there's huge benefits for New Zealand in selling our intellectual property, which ironically is what David Shearer and the Labour Party are saying that we should be focusing on.
Well, the fact is that if it doesn't go ahead, it'll have a negative impact on foreign investment here. It could also restrict New Zealand companies expanding overseas. There's the FTA and all that sort of stuff. We'll come back in just a moment. David Farrar and Cam Slater on the Huddle. It's 15 to 6. It is now 13 to 6, back with the Huddle with Cam Slater and David Farrar. David, issue number 2 is the decision pending on a deal between the government and Sky City over a convention centre. They're softening the public up for this. This will happen also, I believe. There's a lot of aggro out there, Labour claiming that it's a shonky deal. And before I go to see, I got a text here. Is Larry Williams being paid when he talks up Sky City? Well, disclosure of interest, 0. No. Got it? Let's move on. I think, David, this is a smart deal, actually.
Yeah, well, the convention centre is vital in terms of being able to get more tourists into Auckland, because if you don't have one, none of these major world conventions can consider doing them in New Zealand. And if you can get the private sector to pay for it, to see from the government's point of view.
But that's not the issue here, David. That's all good, isn't it? The issue here, Cameron, is that the association with gambling and the changing of the law to get this done.
Well, we've got gambling.
Yep.
What's the issue? I mean, actually, John Key's right when he says it's far better that people are in a single place wasting their money on gambling than it is out in the communities and bars and pubs and whatever. And frankly, the numbers that Labour's talking about, saying that 37% of those pokies money comes back and only 2% of Sky City, they're lumping the entire revenue amount of Sky City into that and claiming the 2%. It's actually a huge number that's going back into the community. But the bottom line for me as a ratepayer in Auckland is that my rates aren't going to be used to build a silly convention
David?
centre.
I don't understand why there's quite such a focus in terms of harm from gambling on the number of machines as opposed to the location. I can understand that if you don't have them in many places, make it harder to get to. You might have a few less people gaming. But I'm actually not sure that if Sky City has 100 more gaming machines or 200 more, it means you're actually going to have more people gaming. It's not as if there's big queues where you have to queue up.
No, I agree with that. Let's move on because time's running out. Issue 3, Cameron, is Greenpeace get taken apart by the Advertising Standards Authority. I'm not sure this means much because sure as hell Greenpeace won't actually be losing any sleep over it. But they claimed in an ad over 20,000 birds were killed by the Rena oil spill, and deep-sea oil drilling could be 1,000 times worse. How do you see this?
Well, I blogged about that back in February, and I'm pleased to see somebody's picked it up and laid a complaint against them. There's a fine line between hyperbole and lying. And hyperbole, everyone can accept if they had said, thousands of birds perhaps had been killed by the Rena. But they didn't. They said that 20,000, more than 20,000, with absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever. Not even the Maritime Safety Authority on their website has got a number remotely even close to that. So good job that they got to serve. And you're right, though, they won't learn anything.
Well,
to do it.
David, they didn't get done on the second one. Deep-sea oil drilling could be 1,000 times worse because the word could was in there, right?
I know, which gave them this get out of jail free card. 2 numbers here. Gulf of Mexico oil spill, number of birds killed, they think around 3,500, not 20 million. However, in New Zealand, we do have 20 million birds killed a year by possums. So I'd like to see Greenpeace doing the same amount of publicity about possums.
Just finally, before you leave me, comment on the ACC. It's going to be investigated, the Auditor-General releasing this today, and good, bad and different. What do you see in it, Ken? Excellent.
It's great.
Go, Cam.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic that the Auditor-General has decided to act on Labor's complaint and to have a look at the governance of the board. I reckon the great thing about this all is that after all of this, Labor making meal of it in the House, constantly going on about how broken ACC is, they're hardly going to be in a position to complain when the government says, look, it is broken and we do need to fix it and we need to open them up to some competition.
Okay. I think it's a good thing, isn't it, David?
It is. Look, you've effectively had a bit of a war here between Bronwyn Puller and her supporters and ACC, and I think the Auditor-General is just the right person to be able to go in and say, did anything inappropriate happen beyond what we already know about, which led to the resignation, because it's important we actually can then move on to this, on to bigger issues.
Thank you, David. David Farrar and Cameron Slater on the Huddle. It's now 8 to 6.